The human body can live for roughly 30 days without food. The human condition can sustain itself for about 3 days without water, but no human alive can live for more than 30 seconds without hope, because without hope, what do we have left? Everybody has down days. Everybody has sad days. Everybody has frustration. Everybody has days where they want to give up, including myself. And start in your mind's eye successful, and start by closing your eyes every night and picturing what you want and what you truly want to work for. I'm Sean Swarner, and I'm the only person in the world to have accomplished what I have, and I share hope.
Welcome to I Share Hope, the podcast where world leaders share their real stories of hope and how you can use actionable hope to start changing your life today. And now, here's your host, Chris Williams.
Hello, Sean. How are you? Chris Williams here.
Hey, I'm great. Let me put my video on there too.
Man, I can't tell you how excited I am about this. Just honestly, I'm a little bit giddy. I love mountaineering. I have a lot of friends who are really into it and done not a lot of climbing like you have, obviously, but love the sport, read a lot about it. Just a huge fan. And reading your bio, oh my goodness, you've done so much.
Yeah, well, you do what you can with what you're given, so I'm just trying to do the best I can.
So I get your bio right when I introduce you in a minute. Are you said in January you finished the Hawaii Ironman. You talking about like the Ironman?
Actually, I did the Hawaii Ironman a few years ago. I just got done with the South Pole. I did an expedition across Antarctica to the South Pole.
That's right. That's what was January. Okay. Did you do that on foot? Dog sled? What?
On skis, actually, yeah.
Wow. Like cross-country skis. Is a lot of ravines? Is a lot of climbing involved? Is it just flat out?
Not much. It's just a really long, boring, one-direction trip.
And when you get there, you're so sad. You have to come home because you just wish somebody would come pick you up.
Actually, they had people there to pick us up, so that
Oh,
was
nice.
they had the South Pole Research Station there too, which was really phenomenal.
Is it cool?
No, it's really cool. I mean, the people who gave me a tour, I mean, they're just geniuses, absolute geniuses. But
Wow.
they're slightly off too, because they're going to spend 6 months in darkness. So
Wow.
they're uber geniuses, but they're just tweaked a little bit differently, I think.
Most of the geniuses I know are tweaked that way, but they're
Yeah, exactly.
sometimes I wish that was me. Well, let me make sure I get your last name right. Is it Swarner? Is that how you pronounce it?
Swanner, that's
Okay,
it.
good. I'm not very good at pronouncing names, but I want to make sure I get it right. Well, let me introduce you, and then I don't want to waste our time talking pre-show because so many people are going to want to hear what we're talking about, even if it's just chit-chat. But I follow the show notes pretty directly, the ones that I sent you, and it has an outline of the questions that we're going to ask. So I'll just stick with that. You can roll through, take it wherever you like. And question number 3 is usually where people start getting into a little more of their personal story. So if you talk a little more about yourself and mention you're a cancer survivor or whatever, great. But if you're going to use that as kind of your story of using hope to come back from things, then save the good stuff till question 3.
Cool.
Good deal?
Sounds good, yeah.
Well, Sean Swarner, super excited to have you with us today. So you're a 2-time cancer survivor. Both times you were given just weeks to live. You became the first cancer patient to summit Everest. That's incredible. And you've gone on to climb the highest peaks on each continent. I've read so much about those expeditions, and I'm extremely, extremely impressed. And then you've also completed the Ironman in Hawaii, and this past January, you decided to take a trip across the Antarctic to the South Pole, and you made it. And you're here with us today. You've also founded the nonprofit cancerclimber.org. I've been all over that website the past few hours. Super amazing stuff. I can't thank you enough for being here, and congratulations on celebrating 25 years cancer-free.
Hey, that's just an added bonus to everything else, right?
That's right. Man, tell us more about you. What's going on? What are you into these days?
Well, let's see. I just did a Skype call. 3 o'clock. So literally 5 minutes ago, I just got off the computer. I was doing a Skype call because like you said, I just got back from the South Pole, and I'm getting in touch with classrooms now, anywhere from first grade to 12th grade, and doing Skype calls with them. And it's kind of fun. This one was with a first grade class. And the questions that are distinguished between, a first grade class and a 12th grade class. Like a 12th grade class would ask me a question like, oh, how has your life changed since you've had cancer? And a first grade question would be, what's your favorite color?
Yeah.
And like a third grade question would be, how many flags are at the South Pole? So, I mean, it's all over the place. But doing these questions, I can see how people mature, and the questions mature from first grade all the way through 12th grade. It's actually really cool.
So, of course, I want to know how many flags at the South Pole.
12.
12.
12.
12
And
countries? Is that what it is?
exactly, because I think about 50 years ago, they developed a treaty where no one actually owns Antarctica. So it's a treaty where 12 countries kind of all work together to protect Antarctica. And when I was down there at the South Pole Research Station, as we talked about a little bit earlier, it's odd because that treaty is up, I believe, I'm going to say in less than 10 years, 5, 10 years.
Oh, wow.
And it's odd because these quote unquote research stations are popping up everywhere, and no one's really believing that they're research stations. They're bringing in drilling equipment.
Oh, my goodness. What's under there? Is it oil deposits or minerals? What's in there?
They think, a lot of people think that there are a bunch of oil deposits there, but I mean, most people don't understand about the difference between the North Pole and South Pole, because I'm hopefully doing the North Pole next year. The North Pole is just a solid chunk of ice. There's no landmass down
Right.
there. It's not a continent.
Yeah.
And the South Pole, there is Antarctica, which is a landmass, and you have a 2 mile thick sheet of ice that's moving over the continent.
Whoa.
So that's what they're drilling through. I mean, they are doing a lot of research down at the South Pole. There's one really interesting thing. If anybody wants to look it up, it's just called the ice box, where they're detecting neutrinos, or the ice cube. Sorry, the ice cube, and they're detecting neutrinos and where they're coming from. They're detecting black holes and everything. It's just geniuses work down there. I wish I could understand half the things that came out of their mouths.
That's so cool. I'm impressed, man. You've been able to experience so many things. So tell me about hope. We've got these 5 questions we ask every person we interview, and you have a unique perspective. You've been a lot of places, literally all over the globe, seen a lot of people groups, and had a lot of experiences that give you a unique view. So, what is your definition or best favorite quote about hope?
Well, that's really easy because I'm also a motivational speaker and tour around the world giving inspirational talks to companies, keynote stuff, but also organizations, hospitals, charities, everything. Pretty much anybody who will listen to me talk, I suppose. So in my presentations, I have a quote that goes like this: the human body can live for roughly 30 days without food. The human condition can sustain itself for about 3 days without water, but no human alive can live for more than 30 seconds without hope. Because without hope, what do we have left?
Wow. That's really powerful and well said, and connects. So you're so right. There's no way you can make it. I mean, really, a life without hope isn't a life, and hope is so connected and so stuck in our hearts. And the people who lose it, it gets dark pretty fast. Hmm.
It does. And as soon as people lose hope, going through any traumatic experience, any traumatic illness, any part of their day, as soon as you lose hope, there really is nothing left. There's nothing left to hold on to.
You're right. Great. Question number 2. Who's shared the most hope with you? Who's been out there and really influenced your life in a hopeful direction?
I would say it's probably a combination of a lot of people. So it's not just one person who's given me the most hope. My family, my mom, my dad, my brother, and my cousins, and my grandma and grandpa, my whole family pulling me through cancer because um, when you get cancer, it's not an individual disease, unfortunately. Everyone around you is involved, family, friends, everyone. But also, they kind of instilled that seed of hope in me. But when I'm traveling around now, what I do is I visit local hospitals and share my survivorship story with the patients, and they give me hope. So I have this notion of a circle of hope or a circle of inspiration where you cut it in half. The top part of the circle represents me climbing, me doing my crazy slash stupid things, depending on who you ask. The crazy things. And I'm getting my hope, my inspiration from people who are battling for their lives, mostly the cancer patients. But like I said before, anybody who's going through anything traumatic. And when I go visit those hospitals, I stand next to the hospital bed and I see someone who's in that condition. I share my survivorship story with the patients. I'm trying to give them some hope in return. So it completes the circle of hope or the circle of inspiration where I'm getting inspiration and hope from them. And hopefully they're getting some back from me as well.
It makes a lot of sense. That's a great analogy. It really is. And we are really inspired by the feats that you're producing and just accomplishing constantly. But I'm glad that the people that are still in the middle of a battle for their lives on some traumatic level are just so empowering to you. I think that's really cool because I'm sure they feel like they can't do anything right now, but they're giving so much hope to other people. Cool story.
Yeah, well, thanks. And the thing is, everybody says, well, they look at what I've done and there's no relatability factor, what I call it. There's no relatability factor
Mm.
for climbing Everest and being given 2 weeks to live and, climbing Everest with one lung for that matter. And I tell people, my first step was to go from the hospital bed to the bathroom so I wouldn't soil the sheets. So I know what it's like to actually have to put in that hard work. And people need to realize that you don't go from the hospital bed literally to the top of the mountain overnight. It takes long, dedicated days and hard work to make it happen.
Mm. Wow. Wow. Makes sense. All right. So question number 3, tell me a time and kind of paint the picture. What's going on in your life when you've had to really use hope to get you through something personally? Just stories.
Wow. Instantly, I would think, I kind of talk about this in my book. I wrote a book a number of years ago. I'm working on a new one. But I talk about how when I was getting my treatments, that I would always get treated on the same level. I think it was the ninth floor, seventh floor, we'll say. And treatment after treatment after treatment, the nurses became family. We got to know each other. And for whatever reason, on one day I was going in for treatment, and that entire ward, that entire floor was full, so they had to stick me on a different floor. And this was almost in the middle of wintertime, so it was snowing outside, kind of. It was like sleeting snow in Ohio, and I was just down. I was depressed. I didn't think it was going to turn out right. And my mom and dad kept pushing for someone to not leave, that floor. But when that person left or when someone left, they kept pushing to get me moved to that normal seventh floor. And that finally happened. I went down there and I was looking out the window into the kind of like the square in the hospital. So looked out there. It was four walls around there, and I remember it was snowing and raining and sleeting in there. The sun was out a little bit. There was a rainbow coming into that little courtyard, and I remember looking at my mom and just kind of mentioning and just kind of mumbling, "Everything's going to be all right, isn't it?" So I'm a big believer in signs, and for me that was a huge one.
Mm. Special moment. My goodness. So how old were you when you first got cancer?
First cancer was 13. I was an eighth grader.
Wow. And do you mind telling what type cancer?
But the first one was Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 4, and the
Whoa.
second was Askins sarcoma, stage 4. And actually, they were both advanced stage 4s. And the second time, I was only given 14 days to live. I was actually read my last rites too.
So how old were you on the second round?
16.
Incredible.
Yeah, my whole, pretty much my whole adolescent years were stolen from me or taken from me. But
Mm-hmm.
while my friends were out there worrying about their coolest hairstyles, nicest shoes, clicks, and all the stuff that at the time that most people thought was important. When you're in high school, it's a popularity contest and people are trying to keep up with the Joneses. They're trying to do what's best, what they think everybody else thinks is cool. I was fighting for my life, and I understood more about life than most 40-year-olds do.
Yeah, I bet. Wow. And then all the mountaineering and adventures you've done. I hear these stories from these mountain climbs that are just, they scare you to death. I mean, there's so much out there, and there's so much that can happen that's out of your control. What are people like when they're on the mountains, and how do you deliver hope in that kind of scenario? Obviously, you're a very motivated guy, and you seem to be able to deliver that well to other people.
It's different because you run into all different types of people from all over the globe when you're climbing. On Everest, obviously, people from all over the world come together at this one time a year, which is they're probably getting to base camp right around
Oh,
now.
wow.
So people from all over the world, excuse me, come together, and they have different backstories, different life, different backgrounds, different everything, different cultures. So what motivates one person doesn't necessarily motivate the other person. Some people are there for selfish reasons. Some people are there for higher purpose reasons. And giving them some advice or reaching out to them, I've always told people that because of what I've been through, I see life a little bit differently. I see it through a set of rose-colored lenses, but I've also decided a long time ago that no life is ever worth a hunk of rock and ice. The mountain will always be there, and I didn't want to come home in a pine box. I want to come home under my own power. So I always tell people that no matter what, don't put your life in danger. When you're getting to the summit of Everest, you can be 20 feet away. That 20 feet take you 2 hours because you're going so slowly. So you have to maintain logic. You have to understand how fragile life is and never put your life in jeopardy or in danger. I take what I like to call calculated risks. I'm probably one of the safest climbers out there because of what I've been through. I'm not gonna get myself through two cancers where I was, like I said, given 3 months to live, 14 days to live. I'm not going to get myself through two cancers to go kill myself on a hunk of rock and ice. Like I said, it's just not worth it. It never will be.
Well, good advice for a lot of things in life. Great advice. So, question 4. Sean, how are you sharing hope today? What are you doing out there in the community? Obviously, motivational speaking and so many public events that you're doing. You can talk about those, but also throw in a few just, stuff with the next door neighbor, the guy you meet at the coffee shop, some real practical everyday stuff. How are you sharing hope?
Yeah, that's kind of fun. No, like I have my own charity called the Cancer Climber Association. We just awarded our adventure support grant to a cancer survivor. We're taking him over to climb Kilimanjaro this July. I do it every year as a fundraiser for my charity. This will be summit number 11, I think. So it's just a lot of fun getting over there. I love the culture, love the people. But I also do volunteer work. I'm working with, I just got in touch with a local person down on the Front Range near Boulder, Colorado. Going to be trying to visit some patients there, doing some help there, doing some volunteer work. But I guess one of the biggest reasons I'm still doing what I'm doing, because like everybody else, I get frustrated doing what I'm doing. Sometimes I feel like I hit a wall, the mountain's too big, I can't push through. But I always go back to this story, and it always reminds me of why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's not necessarily what, but it has to be the why. And that's what you have to figure out yourself in life. So many people say, well, I'm doing it because of this, and this. But you really have to narrow it down to the why. Why are you doing it? What's the passion behind it? And I remember giving a presentation. And after the presentations, I always hang around because I enjoy that one-on-one time, and I really enjoy connecting with people on a personal level. When I'm up in front of a big crowd, a big stadium, whatever it is, giving a talk, I'm sharing my personal life with people, but I'm not really connecting with them. So afterwards, I really enjoy if they're doing a happy hour. Yeah, I'll go have some beers and have happy hour with them. I love hanging out with them and doing that. But there was a long line of people, and I was talking to one lady, and we just got done wrapping up, and I forget what it was, what we were talking about, but I looked at the next lady in line, and her eyes were just absolute bloodshot. I could remember looking at her and instantly knowing that she was crying, and she told me that. Well, first of all, she came up to me, just latched onto me, hugged onto me, buried her face in my chest, and just lost it. I finally helped calm her down, and she told me that in the past year she lost her son to cancer, she lost her husband to cancer. There were only three of them. It was her son, and her husband. So she lost her entire family to cancer. This probably happened in the process of 6 months. Lost her son, lost her husband to cancer, and she got diagnosed for the third or fourth time with breast cancer. And she told me that she came to that conference with a suicide note in her hotel room, full knowing that she was not going to come home because there was nothing left to live for. And she convinced herself to go to one more talk. That talk just happened to be mine. And she told me that after listening to my talk, she told me I saved her life.
That's incredible. Hmm. That's pretty rewarding work you're doing right there.
Yeah, that still gets me emotional now. I'm starting to tear up
Wow.
just thinking about it.
You know, that's that's so important, and the guests do all the talking on this show, which is why I'm the lucky guy who doesn't have to say much. Um, and the interviews come out much better that way. But that suicidal connection is part of my past, and it's so true. Um, when you're really, really desperate and you're really at the bottom, and there's somebody who comes around, and it's funny how it happens. It's like God plans it for you, but there's something that happens, and somebody shows up, says the right thing, or pushes you on another 5 minutes, and that's what you need to get over the hump. But wow, it's incredible. I'm glad you're so authentic and real and sharing your story, because a lot of people don't do that, and I think people are so sick and tired of fake, and they want to see some real life. You know?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And I have this whole pendulum theory of what people like to watch on TV, and it swings from one side to the other and the other. And I think right now it's hopefully swinging from, no offense to anybody out there who likes this stuff, but I call it that reality crap that's on TV now. Hopefully it's going to swing from that side way back over to the other side, and and hopefully we're going to have some meaningful TV again.
Yeah, that'd be great. I don't think reality TV is very real.
Yeah.
All right, question number 5, Sean. How can we start sharing hope, or become more hopeful? Give me some simple steps. For those of us who haven't climbed Everest recently, what do we do?
Recently. I haven't climbed Everest recently either, so maybe you guys can give me some advice. I would say, like I said earlier, I do have a book called Keep Climbing, and people have told me it's one of the best books they've read. It was initially sent out there as a climbing book, which I disagreed with the publisher left and right, telling them, how many climbers do you know? Whatever that number is. How many people touched by cancer do you know? It's like you can't walk down the street without bumping into 30 people who know someone touched by cancer. So they dropped the ball on that one, missed the boat, whatever analogy one he used. So I'm thinking of writing another book, and it's based on this idea of, again, my life, but like you said, jokingly, not many people are going to be climbing Everest. And I climbed Everest, great, wonderful, fantastic, big deal. It's an accomplishment, but that's not relatable. And that's not what I'm trying to do with my life. What I'm trying to do with my life is be relatable to people and help them on a personal level with their personal struggles. So what is relatable is not the fact that I climbed Everest. What is relatable is the fact that I go through struggles too. I went through struggles to go accomplish a goal. My 2 cancers, whatever got in my way of accomplishing that goal. Everybody has down days. Everybody has sad days. Everybody has frustration. Everybody has days where they want to give up, including myself. And that's what is relatable to people. Not looking at someone on TV saying, "Oh man, look at that Brad Pitt. Look at that other person." There's nothing for me personally, there's nothing I have in relation to, say, Brad Pitt. He's worth billions of dollars, however much it is. I don't have that. I can't relate to his daily life, but what I can relate to in his daily life are his struggles and the things that he has to overcome on a daily basis. That puts us all on the same plane. And I think people who are losing hope have to realize that we all struggle with something on a daily basis. And you have to keep focus. You have to keep your focus on what you have in mind. And I tell people to do that when they're developing their goals. Most people do it incorrectly. They start at the bottom and they work their way up to the top. They work their way up to their goal. Start in your mind's eye successful, and start by closing your eyes every night and picturing what you want and what you truly want to work for. Use as many senses as you can. So for me, example would be climbing Everest. I pictured myself on top, smelling the ozone, feeling the cold skin, or the cold on my skin, um, you know, feeling the sun on my face, hearing the sounds of the climbers' crampons crunching through the ice. It sounds like styrofoam. But in my mind's eye, before I even begin down that path towards that goal, I picture myself successful. So I take that an analogy of climbing the mountain and flip it upside down. I say flip the mountain and start successful. That way, if you ever encounter any frustration along the way, it will never be enough to make you stop. It'll just frustrate you enough to slow you down. It'll never be enough to frustrate you to quitting.
Great advice. So let me just say that back to make sure I've got it. So we're going to take where we want to be, the long-term goal of growing in hope or changing our life in some way. If it's an addiction, if it's a mental illness, if it's cancer, whatever it may be that we need to get hope from, a relationship even, where do we want that to be? What are we hoping that will look like? And really fixing that in our minds, our imagination, and then keeping that at the forefront versus how hard this next step is going to be, but keeping the end goal in focus. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Because otherwise those little steps end up getting way bigger than they should.
Right. And I don't want it to sound like what I like to call the magic feather syndrome. And I'll explain that in a second. Everybody's seen or heard of Dumbo. You know, the magic feather that he holds, if he wishes hard enough, it's going to happen. Most Disney movies are like this. I call it the magic feather syndrome, where people just sit back and they wish and wish and wish, and oh, it happened. No, you have to work towards that goal. So you can't just have the magic feather syndrome and have it happen to you, magically. The fairy dust isn't going to come by and say, oh, you're a millionaire, or whatever goal you want to have. You have to work on it. And you have to put that effort into it. So with the goals in mind, yes, visualize it, make it true in your mind, but you have to put the work into making whatever you want to come true.
Great advice. Thank you. All right. So a fun question we get to ask everybody is, when you're just feeling a little down and need something to get you going again, what are you going to listen to? What kind of music you like? Give me a band and a song, something like that.
Well, I'm kind of into Pandora right now, and I clicked on classic, like the classics, and I'm thinking, holy crap, I know all these songs now. So I don't know if I'm dating myself or not, but I also knew all the songs that my dad loved and my mom loved, the 60s and everything. But Aerosmith is now a classic.
Yes.
And that scares me.
That's
Metallica is a classic. The Beastie Boys are on the classic station now. I don't know what's going on with this world, but I'm feeling old.
So give me a Aerosmith or Metallica classic that you like.
Well, I just, it's kind of funny. I just played Guitar Hero's Metallica's One. I love that. That's a
awesome.
Good
Yes, I love it. And an accomplished guitar heroist. Is that how you say
Yes.
that? So many things. Well, Sean, just phenomenal to talk to you. So in a second, I'll say goodbye and we can close the audio out, but we'll cut some of this out. So tell me a quick quote that we get from each of our guests. So I'm Sean Swarner and I share hope, or however you want to introduce yourself. I'm Sean Swarner, 2-time cancer survivor, whatever, and then I share hope.
Wow.
We get these clips and we use them as part of your intro when we're setting up the audio file for the podcast.
Okay. Well, I could say, I'm Sean Swarner, and I'm the only person in the world to have accomplished what I have, and I share hope.
That's good.
Because I tell kids, I gave a talk to the United States Marine Corps not too long ago, and those are pardon my French, the badasses of the badasses.
Yeah,
they're
they are
tough guys. And I told them, if you look at the sports world and you look at all the professional athletes out there, the basketball players, the baseball players, the football players, soccer players, lacrosse, even polo, whatever. There are thousands of them. But if you look at Everest, even just the Hawaii Ironman, now add in the South Pole, there's one person in the world who's accomplished that. Cancer, no cancer, 1 lung, 2 lungs, it doesn't matter. There's one person in the world who's accomplished what I've accomplished, and you're looking at him.
So say it again. Your audio cut out. So tell me again. You said Everest and the South Pole, or what's the designation there?
So if you look at Everest, the 7 summits, the Hawaii Ironman, and now the South Pole, I'm the only person in the world who's done that. Cancer survivor, no cancer survivor, 1 lung, 2 lungs. There's one person out of over 7 billion people on the planet who's done what I've done.
That's awesome. And you can play Guitar Hero really well.
Yeah, almost backward.
Man, well, that's really cool. All right, so lastly then, how can we get in touch with you, Sean? What's the best way to follow you? Facebook, Twitter, social media, websites, what you got?
Oh, it's easy. Just go to SeanSwarner.com. I tell them Sean, like Sean Connery, S-E-A-N, and then Swarner, just like the Warner Brothers, but slap an S on the front.
Great. SeanSwarner.com. Man, we'll look it up. That's awesome. Okay, my 3-year-old questions, I have a bunch of these that always pop in my head, so you can rapid fire them off. I know you got to go here in a second. So 12 flags on the South Pole. Already got that one out of the way. But when you're going up these mountains, we don't know the 7 names of these mountains on 7 continents. So fire off the 7 continents and their mountains so we can track with that.
All right, cool. I'll do it in the order that I climbed them. I got the big one off first, Everest. Asia, that was the first one. Second one was Kilimanjaro on Africa. And like I said, I take a group up every year. So if anybody wants to go up, we're still looking for people. Everest, Asia, Kilimanjaro, Africa, Elbrus, Europe, then Aconcagua, South America. Then there is Kosciuszko in Australia, Vinson Massif in Antarctica, and then Denali, or Mount McKinley, same thing, tomato, tomato, Denali up in Alaska for North America.
Next question, anything you're scared of doing right now from an adventure standpoint? Is there something that just says, man, that freaks me out, like I cannot swim, or whatever it may be?
Having kids. I think that kind of scares me right now.
I've got 5 and it freaks me out every day.
I want to have a family someday, but maybe the next couple of years maybe the next couple of years I'll start looking at having a family. But my brother just had a kid last October, so October 2013, and I think that's good for me right now. But eventually, yeah, kids will scare me, and the future with the kids will scare me. So I'm kind of scared of how much college is going to cost for my child by the time he or she's 18. It's going to be like $100,000 a year or something. I don't know. It's something crazy. It keeps going up and up and up.
Yeah, it does. All right, then how many miles did you have to walk to get from the boat to the middle of Antarctica where the South Pole is?
We actually flew from Punta Arenas, Chile to Union Glacier Camp, Antarctica, on a huge plane called a Russian Aleutian. And then from there, we took a little puddle jumper. I think it was a Twin Otter fitted with skis. And we went to just north of the 89th parallel. And then one thing that kind of blew my mind when I got down there was I stood at the South Pole, and every single direction I looked was north.
Oh, that's cool. Is there some really cheesy tourist attraction right there that you charge $20 for to...
No, it's something tells me the South Pole really isn't a touristy destination. But another cool thing is, in about, I'd say 15 seconds when I walked around the South Pole, I went through 24 different time zones.
Oh, that's awesome. Love that. Too bad you couldn't have your iPhone out there watching it. And
Thanks.
All right, last question for you. I'll let you go, man. What is your most interesting thing you're hoping to do next? Like, where are you going? Is there another adventure lined up? What's up on the list?
Well, hopefully I have a documentary going through the Serengeti in Tanzania, and then a week after that doing the 11th trip up Kilimanjaro, and then taking people through the Serengeti on a safari. But I would also love to host my own adventure travel show.
That's great. You could totally do that since you're the only guy who has done what you've done. All right.
Be a lot of fun.
Sean Swarner, thank you so much for your time, man. What a privilege to talk to you. What a fun conversation. And man, I'm extremely impressed. You've knocked a lot of things off the bucket list.
Cool. Well, Chris, I really appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon, buddy. Bye-bye.
Take care.
You've just listened to I Share Hope. If you're ready to make a change, head to our website at isharehope.com and claim your free copy of the Top 10 Actions of Hope from World Leaders to use hope in your own life. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.